Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. The other day, I gave a commentary on a video that had been taking the rounds, a recording of Mnangagwa in Victoria Falls, where he was joking about rigging the elections. So it's just a follow-up. The face in the screen there is very familiar to most people who have followed some videos and articles on Zimai. This is Dr. Masimba Malaza. And his take on that one was that President ED's joke on rigging election is normal. Let me just remind you exactly what Mnangagwa said. I am frightened that I'm meeting CEOs, people who have succeeded in life and are at the top. He told his audience at the CEO conference in Victoria Falls. But of course, without elections, which is good, because elections you rig. Each of those were said with the usual dramatic pause for dramatic effect. And I have to say that the audience laughed at it. I, even now, reading it again, find it ridiculous. The arrogance of the men is unbelievable and should not be excused at all. And for this case, in this case here, for somebody to find it funny, I find it unbelievable. And for somebody to be writing to justify it, amazing. This is what Dr. Mavaza said in his article. President Mnangagwa's recent jest about election rigging during a gathering with business executives in Victoria Falls has steered a mixed response. While some quarters have criticized it as inappropriate admission, it's crucial to view it in the context of humor and President's jovial demeanor, argued Mawaza. I think what we need to look at for somebody particularly who doesn't know Zimbabwe is the context. Zimbabwe has just had an election on the 23rd of August. And the SADC election observers, the AU election observers, and many, many others who bothered to give a report on those election process have condemned those elections as flawed and illegal. Zimbabwe is in this political and economic mess because for the last 43 years, ZANU-PF has rigged elections. If the nation had the opportunity to remove it, they would have removed ZANU-PF a long time ago. But you can't remove it if the party is able to rig the elections. Just like Mnangagwa admitted there. You, he said to those executives, you are in those power on merit. If you were not, if it was elections, it would be another matter because you rig elections. He is in power not because of merit, but because he can rig the elections. And he was admitting it as if this is a big joke. So, for Mawaza, what he's saying here, keep insisting it is a joke, it's ridiculous. This wasn't a joke. This was reality. He was just saying it. Here is somebody who really doesn't care. But everybody knows that he's rigging the elections. He doesn't care that millions of ordinary Zimbabweans who have paid the price for the rigged elections. Because that is the price that most people have paid for these rigged elections. For Mawaza himself, what did he think of the elections? Well, he claims that ZANU-PF does not rig elections as the norm. In other words, these elections were free, fair, and credible. In fact, he has said on other occasions that these elections were free, fair, and credible. So he is only reiterating what Mnangagwa himself said when he went to the UN soon after the elections in September. He told the world at the UN General Assembly that the elections were free, fair, and credible. But when he was more relaxed among those whom he know they will never ever hold him to account, he was able to admit that, if you're able to rig the elections, you rig them. And admit that he was rigging the elections. And like I said, SADC and the AU observers condemned the process as flawed and illegal. SADC heads of state have since upheld the SADC election observer team's report, which, when it was first issued, needless to say, that ZANU-PF operatives, including Mawaza himself, went to town attacking the team that were in the election observer, notably the chairperson was leading it, Dr. Nevas Mumba of Zambia, and even attacked the Zambian president himself, calling them puppets. This is a regime and these operatives that really have got no regard about the rights of every Zimbabwean citizen to a meaningful say in the governance of the country. They're totally indifferent to the consequences of Zimbabwe's failure to hold free, fair, and credible elections, which is essentially we have a failed state. And the consequences of a failed state is the economic collapse, the serious human rights abuses, and the contempt those in positions of power who hold the electorate, especially those on the coalface of the failed regime. I would like to again reiterate that SADC heads of state, despite all the abuse and insults held at the SADC election observer team and the president of Zambia, the SADC leaders have upheld the report by the election observer team. And they've set the date of the 31st of October as the day the regional body will make its decision on that report, damning report. As for ZANU-PF's own position, as we know, the regime said the elections were free, fair, and credible. At least that's the official position. The more unofficial, radical, and in-your-face position is that we rigged the elections. SADC leaders will do two things when they meet. They will either uphold the report and confirm that the electoral process was flawed and illegal, and therefore then the ZANU-PF regime, with his sidekick, Triple C, are illegitimate. Alternatively, the SADC heads of state will water down the report and give ZANU-PF a slap on the wrist and tell them that they must make sure that next time the elections are free, fair, and credible, and then go ahead and grant the regime legitimacy. The consequences of granting ZANU-PF political legitimacy cannot be overemphasized. Zimbabwe is a failed state. Zimbabwe cannot afford another 5 years of this corrupt and tyrannical regime. That is a fact. Even if we say we accept it, at the end of the 5 years, what then? Without reforms, we cannot expect the next elections to be free, fair, and credible. It is that simple. ZANU-PF will never implement any meaningful reforms. ZANU-PF will never reform itself out of government, period. They will only be taking more precautions to make sure that next time whoever is coming to observe those elections will find it very difficult to uncover some of the rigging measures that they would have adopted. That's all. That's all they've ever done. That's the best we can expect. I think SADC should bite the bullet and realize that as long as ZANU-PF is there, Zimbabwe will never, ever have any meaningful economic recovery. And therefore, then the failed state status will remain. And there's no denying that ZANU-PF has caused serious instability in the region, not only in Zimbabwe, but in the whole region too. So I hope come the 31st of October, the SADC heads will bite the bullet, uphold the SADC election report, tell ZANU-PF that the regime is illegitimate and stand firm on the way forward. I suggest the way forward would be for the country to have a national transition authority in which neither ZANU-PF nor CCC are involved, for the simple reason that they were involved in the GNU of 2008 to 2013, and that changed nothing, because not even one meaningful democratic reform was implemented then. It is naive to think that the same players will implement any meaningful reforms now. At best, they will implement some. At best. And the country will be expected to stagger on. After 43 years, I think the people of Zimbabwe deserve to finally exercise their right to free, fair, and credible elections. Zimbabwe deserves the chance to end this case of rigged elections, and those responsible for rigging the elections boasting about it. And the apologists, our friend here, Dr. Mawaza, thinking it's all a jest. This is a serious matter. Anyone joking about it is, to say the least, in bad taste. Particularly when you know they actually did rig the elections. The only way they can be jesting about it is because they don't care. We rigged the elections, now we tell you, so what? That is what they are saying. What are you going to do about it? Well, we hope SADC is going to do something about it. We really need to end this madness of rigged elections. Zimbabwe, the people of Zimbabwe deserve better. And I believe that SADC will do the honorable thing here and give the people of Zimbabwe that chance to really end this madness. Thank you very much for listening, and good night. We watch this space. We really are keeping our eyes sealed on the main big day, the 31st of October. That is when SADC will meet and make a decision on this issue. And meanwhile, I'm sure we'll talk about it and I'll keep you updated on what is happening. Thank you again for listening, and good night.